The morning sun cast long shadows across the parking lot of Westfield Academy as Dr. Maya Richardson pulled her car into the space marked Assistant Principal. She took a deep breath, smoothing down her navy blazer one more time before stepping out. Today was the day she had been working toward for 15 years. Maya had grown up in the inner city, where school buildings had cracked windows and textbooks with missing pages. But she had teachers who believed in her, who saw something special when she raised her hand with yet another question. Those teachers changed her life, and now she wanted to do the same for others. The path hadn't been easy. While working full-time at Lincoln Elementary, she had spent her evenings in graduate school classes, her weekends writing papers, and her summers taking extra courses. Her two children, Tyler and Zoe, had grown used to seeing their mom hunched over textbooks at the kitchen table long after they went to bed. When she finally earned her doctorate, Tyler had joked that he thought Dr. Mom was her new name. Westfield Academy was different from any school she had worked at before. The building gleamed with fresh paint and new technology. Students walked the halls with designer backpacks talking about weekend ski trips and summer camps in Europe. The parking lot was filled with luxury cars dropping off teenagers who seemed to have stepped out of a magazine. Maya walked through the main entrance, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. The trophy cases lined the walls, filled with awards dating back decades. Photos of past principals hung in the main hallway, a sea of familiar faces that all looked remarkably similar. She paused for a moment, realizing she would be the first person who looked like her to have her photo on that wall. The secretary at the front desk, Mrs. Peterson, looked up with a practiced smile. "You must be Dr. Richardson. Welcome to Westfield. I've prepared your office keys and schedule for today's meetings." "Thank you so much," Maya replied warmly. "I'm excited to get started." Mrs. Peterson's smile seemed genuine, but Maya noticed how her eyes lingered just a moment too long, as if she was trying to figure something out. It was a look Maya had become familiar with over the years, the slight surprise that seemed to cross people's faces when they met her for the first time. Her office was spacious, with large windows overlooking the school's pristine courtyard. Maya set down her box of personal items and began arranging her space. She placed a photo of Tyler and Zoe on her desk, along with a small plant her mother had given her for good luck. On the bookshelf, she arranged her educational journals and the notebook, where she kept her ideas for improving schools. The first staff meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock. Maya had prepared extensively, creating a presentation about her vision for student-centered learning and inclusive education practices. She believed every child could succeed if given the right support and opportunities, regardless of their background. As teachers filed into the conference room, Maya noticed the way they naturally grouped together. There were the younger teachers, fresh out of college with bright eyes and eager smiles. The middle group seemed more cautious, observing quietly from their seats. And then there was the veteran group, led by a woman with silver hair and a stern expression who commanded attention without saying a word. "Good morning, everyone," Maya began, standing at the front of the room. "I'm Dr. Maya Richardson, and I'm thrilled to be joining the Westfield family as your new assistant principal." The response was polite but measured. Some teachers nodded encouragingly, while others simply watched with neutral expressions. Maya launched into her presentation, sharing her ideas about creating more engaging classroom experiences and supporting students who might be struggling. She talked about her research on different learning styles and her experience helping students who had been written off by others. "I believe every student has untapped potential," she said with passion. "Our job is to find the key that unlocks their unique abilities." During the question period, the silver-haired woman, who had introduced herself as Ms. Walsh, raised her hand. "Dr. Richardson, while your ideas sound interesting in theory, Westfield has a long tradition of academic excellence. Our methods have produced generations of successful graduates. Are you suggesting our current approach is inadequate?" Maya felt the room's energy shift. She could sense that this moment mattered, that how she responded would set the tone for everything that followed. "Not at all," Maya replied diplomatically. "Westfield's reputation speaks for itself. I'm simply hoping to build on that strong foundation. by incorporating some additional strategies that can help us reach even more students. Education is always evolving, and staying current with best practices benefits everyone. Ms. Walsh nodded. Slowly, but Maya caught the subtle eye roll she shared with the teacher sitting next to her. After the meeting, Maya tried to connect with individual staff members. Most were polite and professional, though she noticed some conversations seemed to end abruptly when she approached. The younger teachers were more welcoming, asking questions about her background and expressing interest in her ideas. During lunch, Maya sat in the faculty lounge, hoping to join casual conversations and get to know her colleagues better. She overheard Ms. Walsh talking to a group of teachers about maintaining standards and preserving what makes Westfield special. When Maya approached, the conversation stopped, and after a few moments of awkward small talk, the group dispersed. That afternoon, Maya observed several classes, taking notes on teaching methods and student engagement. She was impressed by the resources available and the obvious dedication of most teachers. However, she also noticed that certain students seemed disconnected, sitting quietly in the back or looking out the windows instead of participating. In one English class, she watched a student named David struggle with a reading assignment. The teacher continued with the lesson plan while David fell further behind. Maya made a mental note to discuss differentiated instruction strategies that could help students like David succeed alongside their peers. As the day ended, Maya reflected on her first impressions. The school had incredible potential, but she sensed an undercurrent of resistance to change. Some staff members seemed genuinely open to new ideas, while others appeared to view her presence as a threat to their established routines. Walking to her car, Maya pulled out her phone and called her mother. "How was day one, sweetheart?" her mother asked. "Interesting," Maya replied honestly. "It's going to be a challenge, but that's nothing new. I didn't get this far by backing down from challenges." Her mother chuckled. "That's my girl. Remember, you belong there just as much as anyone else. Those children need someone like you, someone who understands that every student deserves a chance to shine." As Maya drove home, she thought about the students she had observed that day. Some were confident and engaged, clearly thriving in the current system. But others seemed lost or bored, their potential hidden beneath the surface. Those were the students who reminded her why she had worked so hard to get where she was. That evening, while helping Tyler with his homework and listening to Zoe practice violin, Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to make connections and start building the changes she envisioned. She had faced skepticism before and had always found a way to win people over through her dedication and results. Maya Richardson was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had not come this far to give up at the first sign of resistance. The students at Westfield Academy deserved her best effort, and that was exactly what they were going to get. 3 weeks into her new position, Maya began to notice things that made her stomach tighten with unease. It started small, almost too subtle to mention. Email chains that mysteriously stopped including her. Meeting times that got changed without notification. Conversations that ended abruptly when she walked into a room. The first major incident happened during a department head meeting on a Tuesday morning. Maya had prepared a presentation about implementing peer tutoring programs, something that had worked wonderfully at her previous schools. She arrived at the conference room 5 minutes early, as was her habit, only to find it empty. Confused, she checked her calendar twice. The meeting was definitely scheduled for 9 o'clock in conference room B. After waiting 15 minutes, she walked to the main office to ask Mrs. Peterson about it. "Oh, Dr. Richardson," Mrs. Peterson said, looking genuinely surprised. "Didn't you get the email? Ms. Walsh moved the meeting to conference room A about an hour ago. Something about the projector in room B being broken." Maya hurried to conference room A, where she found the meeting already in progress. All eyes turned to her as she quietly entered and took the only remaining seat at the far end of the table. "Sorry I'm late," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I didn't receive the room change notification." Ms. Walsh looked up from her notes with the expression that seemed almost sympathetic. "Oh no, that's unfortunate. We've already covered most of the agenda items. Perhaps next time you could check your email more frequently. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks but maintained her composure. Of course. Could I still present the peer tutoring proposal? It will only take 10 minutes. I'm afraid we're running short on time today, Ms. Walsh replied smoothly. Why don't you send us the information in an email and we can discuss it at next month's meeting? As Maya walked back to her office, she checked her email inbox 3 times. There was no notification about the room change. She even searched her spam folder and checked her email settings, but found nothing. The pattern continued over the following days. Important announcements somehow didn't reach her. Supply orders she had submitted got lost in the system. When she tried to schedule classroom observations, teachers claimed they had already been assigned to other administrators. The breaking point came during a faculty meeting where Maya planned to introduce her ideas about creating more inclusive classroom environments. She had research showing how small changes in teaching methods could help students from different backgrounds succeed better. As she stood to begin her presentation, Ms. Walsh interrupted. Before Dr. Richardson begins, I think we should address some concerns that have been brought to my attention. Maya felt every eye in the room turned toward her. What concerns? Ms. Walsh shuffled through some papers on her desk. Several parents have called about some of the new policies you've been discussing. They're worried that these changes might lower our academic standards. I haven't implemented any new policies yet, Maya replied carefully. I've only shared some research-based suggestions for engaging different types of learners. Well, that's exactly the issue, said Mr. Thompson, one of the senior math teachers. Our students are already achieving at high levels. Why fix something that isn't broken? Another teacher, Ms. Garcia, nodded in agreement. Westfield parents choose us because of our traditional approach. They don't want experimental methods used on their children. Maya took a deep breath. I understand the concern, but research shows that inclusive teaching methods actually raise achievement for all students, not just some. When we use multiple approaches, everyone benefits. But Dr. Richardson, Ms. Walsh said with a tone that sounded patient but felt condescending, you have to understand that our community has certain expectations. What works in other types of schools might not be appropriate here. The phrase, other types of schools, hung in the air like a weight. Maya knew exactly what Ms. Walsh meant, and she suspected everyone else in the room did too. After the meeting, Maya sat in her office trying to process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from her daughter, Zoe. How's work going, Mom? Are you changing the world yet? Maya smiled despite her frustration. Her children always knew how to lift her spirits. She texted back, working on it, sweetheart. Rome wasn't built in a day, but the challenges kept mounting. During lunch duty, Maya noticed a group of students sitting alone while others socialized nearby. When she approached them, she learned they were scholarship students who felt out of place among their wealthier classmates. We just don't fit in, explained a quiet girl named Ashley. They talk about vacation houses and private tennis lessons. We talk about part-time jobs and college scholarships. Maya's heart went out to these students. She had been in their shoes once, feeling like an outsider looking in. She made a mental note to create some programs that could help bridge these social gaps. When Maya brought up this idea at the next administrative meeting, Principal Johnson seemed interested. That sounds like it could be valuable, he said. Why don't you put together a proposal? But Ms. Walsh quickly interjected. I'm not sure that's necessary. Our students generally get along quite well. We wouldn't want to create problems where none exist. But there are students who feel isolated. Maya pressed gently. Simple mentorship programs or lunch groups could help. Dr. Richardson, Ms. Walsh said with a sigh, I think you might be seeing issues that aren't really there. Sometimes when people come from different backgrounds, they interpret normal social dynamics as problems. Maya felt the familiar sting of being dismissed, but she kept her voice professional. I've spoken directly with students who expressed these concerns. Well, teenagers always have something to complain about, Mr. Thompson added with a chuckle. That's just part of being a teenager. As weeks passed, Maya noticed that her ideas were consistently met with resistance, while similar suggestions from other administrators were welcomed. When she proposed updated technology training, It was deemed unnecessary expense. When Mr. Thompson suggested the same thing 2 weeks later, it was approved immediately. The whispers grew louder. Maya would walk into the faculty lounge and catch the tail end of conversations that seemed to be about her. Teachers would stop talking and smile politely, but she could feel the tension in the room. One afternoon, she overheard Ms. Walsh talking to a group of teachers near the copy machine. "I just think we need to be careful about making too many changes too quickly," Ms. Walsh was saying. "Some people come in thinking they know better than everyone else, but they don't understand our culture here." "Exactly," agreed another voice. "We've been successful for decades. Why should we change now just because someone thinks we should?" Maya pretended to organize papers at her mailbox, but she listened to every word. "The parents are starting to ask questions too," Ms. Walsh continued. "They don't want their children used as experiments. They pay good money to send their kids here because they trust our methods." Maya's hands trembled slightly as she gathered her mail. She had never felt so alone in a workplace before. Even at her previous schools, where resources were limited and challenges were enormous, she had felt supported by her colleagues. Here she felt like she was constantly swimming against a current that kept getting stronger. That evening, Maya called her mentor, Dr. Williams, who had guided her through graduate school. "I don't know what to do," Maya admitted. "I came here to make a positive difference, but I feel like I'm fighting a battle I can't win." "Maya," Dr. Williams said gently, "change is never easy, especially when you're challenging people to think differently. The question is, are you going to let them push you out, or are you going to find a way to push forward?" Maya looked at the photos on her desk of Tyler and Zoe, and at the certificate from her doctoral graduation. She had overcome obstacles before. She wasn't about to give up now. It was a busy Thursday afternoon when everything came to a head. Maya had been dealing with a parent complaint about lunch procedures, helping a student with college application questions, and reviewing teacher evaluations all morning. The stress of the past 2 months was weighing heavily on her shoulders, but she pushed through with her usual professional smile. Around 2:30, she decided to take a quick break and freshen up before her next meeting with Principal Johnson. The faculty restroom on the second floor was usually quiet during class time, which was exactly what Maya needed. A few minutes of peace to collect her thoughts and prepare for what she hoped would be a productive conversation about student support programs. As she pushed open the heavy wooden door, Maya immediately sensed something was wrong. The restroom wasn't empty as she had expected. 3 figures stood near the sinks, and they turned toward her with expressions that made her stomach drop. Ms. Walsh stood in the center, flanked by Mrs. Patterson, the English department head, and Ms. Rodriguez from the counseling office. Their positioning seemed deliberate, blocking the path to both the stalls and the exit. Maya's instincts told her to turn around and leave, but something in their stances suggested this encounter wasn't accidental. "Dr. Richardson," Ms. Walsh said, her voice carrying a tone Maya had never heard before. Gone was the polite professionalism from their public interactions. This voice was cold, direct, and filled with barely contained frustration. Maya felt her heart rate quicken, but she maintained her composure. "Hello, ladies. How are you doing this afternoon?" "We need to talk," Mrs. Patterson said, stepping slightly forward. "We've been patient, but things have gone far enough." Maya glanced toward the door, but Ms. Rodriguez had moved to block that path more obviously now. The restroom suddenly felt much smaller than it actually was. "What exactly do you mean?" Maya asked, keeping her voice steady despite the growing knot in her stomach. Ms. Walsh crossed her arms and fixed Maya with a stare that felt like ice. "You've been here 2 months, and you're already trying to tear down everything we've built. Do you have any idea how hard we've worked to make this school what it is?" "I'm not trying to tear down anything," Maya replied carefully. "I'm simply suggesting ways we might be able to help more students succeed." "Help more students?" Mrs. Patterson let out a harsh laugh. "You mean change everything to accommodate students who don't belong here in the first place?" Maya felt the words hit her like a physical blow, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Every student who's enrolled here belongs here. That's not up for debate." "Isn't it, though?" Ms. Rodriguez spoke for the first time, her voice sharp with frustration. This school has maintained its reputation for over 50 years. We have waiting lists of families who want their children to attend Westfield Academy. They don't come here for experimental programs and social justice workshops. Maya realized this wasn't a casual encounter. They had planned this confrontation, waited for her to be alone, and cornered her deliberately. The understanding sent a chill down her spine. "I've never proposed any social justice workshops," Maya said, trying to keep the conversation factual. "I've shared research about inclusive teaching methods that benefit all students." Ms. Walsh stepped closer, her voice rising slightly. "Don't play games with us, Dr. Richardson. We know exactly what you're trying to do. You want to turn our school into one of those places where standards don't matter, where everyone gets a trophy just for showing up." "That's completely false," Maya responded, feeling her professional mask starting to slip. "High standards and inclusive practices aren't mutually exclusive. Research clearly shows—" "We don't need your research," Mrs. Patterson interrupted harshly. "We have decades of experience and results. Our graduates go to the best colleges in the country. Our test scores are among the highest in the state. What more proof do you need? That our methods work?" Maya took a deep breath, recognizing that this conversation was spiraling beyond any reasonable discussion about education. "Our methods work for some students, but we're losing others along the way. I've seen students here who are struggling, who feel like they don't belong, who could succeed with just a little additional support. Those students have other options," Ms. Rodriguez said bluntly. "Not every school is meant for every child. We're not a charity." The words hung in the air like poison. Maya felt something shift inside her, a recognition that this wasn't really about teaching methods or educational philosophy. This was about something much deeper and more personal. Ms. Walsh seemed to sense that she had Maya's full attention now. "You need to understand something, Dr. Richardson. Westfield Academy has a culture, a tradition, a way of doing things that works. When people come here from other types of schools, from other backgrounds, sometimes they don't understand what makes this place special." Maya felt the full weight of what Ms. Walsh was really saying. The phrase "other types of schools and other backgrounds" carried implications that made Maya's hands tremble with suppressed anger. "What exactly are you trying to tell me?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mrs. Patterson stepped forward again, her tone becoming more aggressive. "We're telling you that maybe this isn't the right fit. Maybe you'd be happier somewhere else, somewhere that aligns better with your particular perspective on education. Somewhere more suitable for someone like you," Ms. Rodriguez added, the words carrying unmistakable meaning. Maya felt the walls of the restroom closing in around her. She thought about all the times she had been told she didn't belong somewhere, all the obstacles she had overcome to reach this position, all the late nights studying while her children slept so she could earn the credentials that brought her here. "I'm not going anywhere," Maya said, surprised by the strength in her own voice. "I was hired to do a job, and I intend to do it well." Ms. Walsh's expression hardened. "You're making this difficult for everyone. The other teachers are uncomfortable. Parents are asking questions. You're disrupting a system that has worked perfectly well for decades." "A system that works for some people," Maya corrected. "Not for everyone." "Not everyone is meant to succeed here," Mrs. Patterson said with brutal honesty. "That's just reality. Some people belong in different environments." Maya felt something crystallize in her mind. This wasn't about her qualifications, her experience, or her ideas. This was about them believing she didn't belong in their world, and their determination to make her feel that way until she left on her own. "Are you finished?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. The three women looked at each other, perhaps surprised by Maya's composure. Ms. Walsh straightened her shoulders. "We're trying to help you understand the situation. Fighting against the culture here will only make things harder for everyone, including you." Maya looked at each of them in turn, seeing something in their faces that she had hoped she wouldn't encounter in a professional environment. But there it was, unmistakable and undeniable. "I understand the situation perfectly," Maya said quietly. "The question is, what am I going to do about it?" The silence stretched between them, heavy with tension and unspoken threats. Maya realized that everything that happened next would define not just her future at Westfield Academy, but her own sense of who she was and what she stood for. She thought about her children, about the students she had seen struggling in classrooms where they felt invisible, about all the people who had believed in her along the way. She thought about the little girl she had once been, raising her hand in a classroom with broken windows, refusing to be silent despite the obstacles in her path. Maya reached into her pocket and felt her phone. In that moment, she made a decision that would change everything. Maya's fingers wrapped around her phone as she made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of the angry response the three women seemed to be expecting, instead of the emotional breakdown they might have hoped for, Maya did something completely unexpected. She pulled out her phone with steady hands and opened the voice recording app. The small red button seemed to glow as she pressed it, and she held the device where all three women could clearly see it. "I want to make sure I understand your concerns correctly," Maya said, her voice calm and professional. "Could you please repeat what you just said about who belongs at this school and what makes someone suitable for Westfield Academy?" The reaction was immediate and telling. Ms. Walsh's face went pale, her confident posture crumbling as she realized what was happening. Mrs. Patterson took a step backward, her eyes darting between Maya's face and the phone. Ms. Rodriguez opened her mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. We were just having a private conversation," Ms. Walsh stammered, all traces of her earlier aggression gone. Maya kept the phone steady, her thumb still on the record button. "A private conversation where you told me that some people belong in different environments, that this school isn't meant for everyone, and that I should consider finding somewhere more suitable for someone like me. Did I understand that correctly?" The silence in the restroom was deafening. Maya could hear the distant sounds of students in the hallway, the normal life of the school continuing while this moment stretched between them. "You're taking our words out of context," Mrs. Patterson said weakly, but her voice lacked conviction. Maya tilted her head slightly, maintaining eye contact. What context would make those statements appropriate for a professional conversation between educators? None of them had an answer. Maya continued, her voice gaining strength with each word. "For 2 months, I've tried to understand why my ideas were consistently dismissed, why I was excluded from meetings, why my suggestions were met with resistance while identical ideas from others were embraced. I told myself it was about different educational philosophies. I convinced myself it was just the normal challenges of being new." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "But this conversation has made everything crystal clear. This isn't about education at all, is it? This is about you believing that I don't belong here because of who I am, not because of what I know or what I can contribute." Ms. Walsh tried to regain some composure. "Dr. Richardson, I think you're misunderstanding our intentions. We were simply trying to—" "To what?" Maya interrupted, her professional calm never wavering. "To help me understand my place. To explain why I should lower my expectations? To suggest that I find somewhere more appropriate for my background?" The three women exchanged glances, clearly realizing that their carefully planned confrontation had backfired spectacularly. Maya took a deep breath and continued, her voice filled with a dignity that commanded attention. "Let me tell you something about belonging. I belong here because I earned my place here. I have a doctorate in educational leadership. I have 15 years of experience turning around struggling schools and helping students achieve beyond their own expectations. I have recommendations from superintendents, principals, and parents who have seen the difference I make." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "But more importantly, I belong here because every student in this building deserves to have educators who believe in their potential, regardless of their background, their family's income, or the color of their skin." Mrs. Patterson shifted uncomfortably. "We never said anything about—" "You didn't have to," Maya replied firmly. "Your meaning was perfectly clear. You've spent 2 months trying to make me feel like an outsider, hoping I would get the message and leave quietly. You underestimated me." Maya stepped closer to the center of the room, no longer feeling trapped but instead claiming her space. You want to know what doesn't belong at Westfield Academy? The belief that only certain types of students deserve excellent education. The idea that maintaining tradition is more important than helping every child succeed. The notion that change is automatically bad because it challenges your comfort zone. Ms. Rodriguez finally found her voice. You can't record us without our permission. This is illegal. Maya smiled for the first time since entering the restroom. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. That would be me, but thank you for confirming that you're aware this conversation was inappropriate enough that you wouldn't want others to hear it. The three women looked at each other with growing panic. They had expected to intimidate Maya into silence or resignation. Instead, they had handed her evidence of their behavior. What do you want? Ms. Walsh asked quietly, her earlier bravado completely gone. Maya stopped the recording and looked at each of them in turn. I want what I've always wanted. I want to do my job. I want to help students succeed. I want to work in an environment where ideas are judged on their merit, not on who suggests them. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle before continuing. But most of all, I want you to understand something that seems to have escaped your attention. Education isn't about preserving the past. It's about preparing students for the future. And the future belongs to young people who can think critically, work with diverse groups, and solve complex problems. Our job as educators is to prepare them for that world, not to shield them from it. Maya's voice took on the passion that had driven her through years of night classes and weekend study sessions. Every student who walks through these doors has potential. The quiet girl who sits in the back of math class might become an engineer who designs bridges. The scholarship student who feels out of place might become a doctor who saves lives. The kid who struggles with reading might become an entrepreneur who creates jobs for hundreds of people. She looked directly at Ms. Walsh. But they'll only reach that potential if we believe in them, if we give them the tools they need, and if we create an environment where every student knows they belong. The three women stood silent, perhaps hearing Maya's words differently than they had expected. Maya continued, her voice softer now but no less powerful. I didn't come to Westfield to tear down what you've built. I came to build on it, to make it even better. But I won't be intimidated into silence, and I won't be bullied into leaving. She held up her phone. This recording will be shared with the appropriate people, not to hurt you, but to ensure that this behavior stops. Every student in this school deserves better from us. Maya moved toward the door, then turned back one final time. I hope you'll think about what I've said. Because at the end of the day, we're all here for the same reason, or at least we should be. We're here for the students. As she reached for the door handle, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in months at Westfield Academy. She felt powerful. Not because she had defeated her opponents, but because she had refused to let them defeat her. The three women remained silent as Maya opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The sounds of normal school life surrounded her, students and teachers going about their daily routines, unaware of the confrontation that had just taken place. Maya walked back to her office with her head held high, knowing that everything was about to change. Maya sat in her office that evening, the recording on her phone feeling like both a weapon and a shield. The building was quiet now, with only the custodial staff remaining. She had spent the past 3 hours carefully documenting every incident of the past 2 months, creating a detailed timeline of events that painted a clear picture of workplace harassment. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed her email to Superintendent Dr. Brooks. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about every educator who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong, every student who had been overlooked, and every person who had been told they weren't good enough. The next morning, Maya arrived at work to find a message waiting for her. Dr. Brooks wanted to meet immediately. As she walked to the main office, Maya noticed something different in the hallways. Teachers who usually avoided eye contact now watched her with curious expressions. Word had somehow spread that something significant had happened. Dr. Brooks was a tall woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes that missed nothing. She had built her reputation on fairness and had zero tolerance for discrimination in any form. Dr. Richardson, thank you for coming so quickly, she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. I listened to your recording and reviewed your documentation. I need you to know that this behavior is completely unacceptable and does not represent the values of our school district." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Thank you for taking this seriously. What happened to you should never happen to any educator in our district," Dr. Brooks continued. "I've already spoken with Principal Johnson and will be conducting a full investigation. But I want you to know that regardless of what we find, changes will be made immediately." Over the next week, the atmosphere at Westfield Academy shifted dramatically. Ms. Walsh, Mrs. Patterson, and Ms. Rodriguez were placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The school board called an emergency meeting, and parents received letters explaining that the district was reviewing policies to ensure a welcoming environment for all students and staff. Maya found herself in an unexpected position. Teachers who had previously ignored her began approaching with apologies and support. Some admitted they had witnessed the exclusionary behavior, but hadn't known how to address it. Others shared their own experiences of feeling marginalized when their ideas didn't match the established way of doing things. Mr. Chen, a young science teacher, stopped by her office one afternoon. "Dr. Richardson, I want you to know that some of us really appreciated your ideas about inclusive teaching. We were just afraid to speak up." "Why were you afraid?" Maya asked gently. He looked embarrassed. Ms. Walsh had a lot of influence. Teachers who disagreed with her openly usually found their schedules changed, their supply requests denied, or their classes assigned to the worst time slots. It was easier to stay quiet. Maya realized the problem had been even deeper than she had understood. The toxic behavior hadn't just affected her. It had created an environment where many educators felt silenced. Principal Johnson called Maya into his office 3 days later. "Dr. Richardson, I owe you an apology. I should have seen what was happening and addressed it sooner. The truth is I was aware of some tension, but I didn't realize the extent of it." Maya appreciated his honesty. "What matters now is moving forward in a positive direction." "That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about," he said, leaning forward. "The school board and I have been discussing restructuring. We want to create a more collaborative leadership model, and we'd like you to take on an expanded role." 2 weeks later, Maya stood before the entire faculty for a special meeting. The room felt different now. Where once there had been divided camps and whispered conversations, there was now an atmosphere of cautious optimism. "I know these past few weeks have been challenging for everyone," Maya began. "Change is never easy, but it's necessary for growth. I want to share with you my vision for what Westfield Academy can become." She clicked to her first slide, showing statistics about student engagement and achievement. "Our test scores are excellent and our college acceptance rates are impressive. But we're not reaching every student. We have young people sitting in our classrooms who could achieve so much more if we gave them the right support." Maya told the story of David, the student she had observed struggling with reading. With some additional support and modified teaching methods, David is now one of our strongest students in English class. We didn't lower our standards. We found a better way to help him reach them. She shared research about schools that had successfully implemented inclusive practices while maintaining high academic standards. Excellence and equity aren't opposites. They work together to create environments where all students thrive. As Maya spoke, she saw faces changing around the room. Teachers were leaning forward, taking notes, asking questions. The resistance that had once felt like a wall was crumbling. After the meeting, Ashley, the scholarship student who had felt isolated, approached Maya in the hallway. "Dr. Richardson, I heard about the new mentorship program you're starting. I'd like to help." "How would you like to help?" Maya asked. "I want to be a mentor for other scholarship students. I know what it feels like to think you don't belong somewhere. Maybe I can help them see that they do belong here." Maya felt tears sting her eyes. This was exactly the kind of change she had hoped to create. 6 months later, Westfield Academy looked very different. The mentorship program was thriving, with upperclassmen helping younger students navigate both academic and social challenges. Teachers were collaborating on new lesson plans that engaged different learning styles. Parent feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with many commenting on how much more engaged their children seemed in school. Most importantly, the culture had shifted. Students who had once felt invisible were now participating actively in class discussions. The scholarship students had formed study groups that included students from all backgrounds. The hallways buzzed with excitement about learning rather than gossip about social hierarchies. Maya's office was filled with thank you letters from students and parents. One letter particularly touched her heart. It was from Tyler, her own son, who had written, "Mom, I'm proud of you for not giving up. You taught me that standing up for what's right isn't always easy, but it's always worth it." Dr. Brooks visited the school regularly, documenting the positive changes for a case study that would be shared with other districts. "Maya, what you've accomplished here is remarkable. You've proven that one person with courage and vision can transform an entire school culture." The 3 teachers who had confronted Maya in the bathroom had quietly resigned and taken positions elsewhere. Maya felt no satisfaction in their departure, only sadness that they had chosen to leave rather than grow. She hoped they would find their way to becoming better educators wherever they went. As Maya stood in her office one evening, looking out at the courtyard where students from all backgrounds studied together, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The little girl who had once raised her hand in a classroom with broken windows had grown into a woman who could create change in a school with marble floors. Her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Dad says you're famous. Now, some article about innovative educators mentioned you." Maya smiled, thinking about how far she had come. But more importantly, she thought about how far her students would go. Every child who walked through Westfield Academy's doors now knew they belonged there, and that knowledge would carry them through whatever challenges they faced in life. Maya had learned that sometimes the most powerful response to hatred isn't anger, but grace, combined with unwavering determination to do what's right. She had turned a moment of confrontation into a catalyst for lasting change, proving that one person's courage to stand up can lift up an entire community.